Welcome everyone to our webinar. My name is Pratik Dakwala. I'm a senior solution marketing manager at Hitachi Ventara with the digital insight team. Today's webinar is about the data reliability engineering and an imperative for cloud transformation journey. With me, we have an expert panelist who will share their experience about data reliability engineering. They will share some of the great tips for ensuring the reliability of your data in the cloud. Let me introduce our panelist. With me is Anay, Nawathe, and another gentleman is George Philip. Welcome, gentlemen. So, Anay, in today's cloud era where businesses are relying heavily on the cloud-based services and technologies, how important it is for this enterprise to have data reliability engineering? And do you think that data reliability engineering is a must-have for C-level executives or mainly chief data officers or data engineers or data scientists or any other data stewards?
So data reliability engineering is incredibly important. And if you take it back to first principles, why are folks even moving to the cloud? They ultimately want to be able to handle all of the data that's coming into their businesses these days. The velocity, volumes, variety of data are continuing to grow pretty exponentially, and now they need to be able to actually manage it, and data reliability is key to that. So for those C-suite executives that you're talking about, they're going to be able to view data reliability in a lens that allows them to make the right decisions and make those decisions quickly based off of the good data. Now, there's other stakeholders like the actual data teams themselves who will also be valuing the data reliability engineering capability because they spend so much of their time already working on, just getting the quality of data in place to be able to service other folks. And then finally, it's the end customer of all of this data. If you have good, reliable data, you're going to get consistent, better experiences, and that's going to grow to, actual customer trust, customer satisfaction.
Great. George, Hitachi Ventara has launched Hitachi Application Reliability Centers. We call it HARC last year. So can you please briefly tell our audience about HARC and what is the relations between HARC and data reliability engineering?
HARC is a confluence of finest engineering talent, processes, tools, frameworks, and industry best practices that come together to build, manage, and operate cloud workloads in a modern way. HARC focuses on reliability, security, and cost optimization to help customers operate their cloud workloads in a much more efficient way. Now, in modern cloud era, there's an emerging need to take the next step in the data ops and data management space, and that's where Hitachi Vantara and DRE comes in. We are taking DRE to the next level by delivering the highest degree of data reliability while also addressing data observability and data governance challenges being faced by most of the enterprises today. Our approach to enhance data observability includes and enables data reliability engineers with a more complete view of the quality, the freshness, and the trustworthiness of data, which helps data consumers to increase the data utilization consumption across the organization. Now, at the same time, our self-healing predictive maintenance-based approach to managing data pipelines and data that flows through those pipelines help identify potential incidents before they become acute enough to prevent data consumption. Especially for modern cloud data workloads, what we are seeing is that by applying shift-left principles, moving all the way back to source applications to make the source data intelligent enough to have a better and more efficient control over the overall data governance is very important.
HARC focuses on security, reliability, and cost, which most of the organizations care about. And now DRE is going to be offered as part of the HARC. And so when it comes to challenges all this enterprise are going to face, what do you think, George? Today's data leaders, or whether you take a look at analysts and data engineers, what are the challenges they are going to face, and how HARC and Hitachi Data Reliability Engineering Services are going to help them address those challenges?
Yes. Today, if you look at across the industry, most of the organizations have either migrated their data analytics workloads to the cloud or are in the process of doing so. The complexity of the cloud architecture and the real-time nature of data are very difficult for most of the data leaders today to ensure that their organization's data is clean, reliable, and compliant. Now, at the same time, leaders need to be able to deliver clean, reliable data at the right time to support more strategic decision making. This enables managers and AI models that consume the data with the right data. They need to derive actionable insights.
So, Anay, you are in the industry for a long time. What do you think? What are the key indicators that kind of suggest to you that it may be time for enterprise to look into data reliability engineering and invest time and money in this data reliability engineering concept?
Yeah, I mean, ideally every organization starts implementing DRE from day one, right? It's from the second they start to actually collect data, they should actually be looking at how are we going to make this data reliable. Unfortunately, the reality is a lot of organizations don't actually look at DRE until it's a little bit too late. They run into some issue with compliance requirements, or they have some sort of outage, or they start, losing some of that customer satisfaction. So as George alluded to, some of those acute problems start to come, to the top, right? So, we want to make sure that folks are actually implementing this earlier on in their process, and it's going to be such a big, such a critical actual capability to have as organizations are continuing to invest in their modernization, right? The legacy way of doing data reliability just doesn't work for the actual data streams and real-time data ingestion and real-time decision making that every organization needs to be able to do now. Previously, you could have some data come in and you had time to actually go through and cleanse it before you could actually turn it back over to customers. You just don't have that luxury anymore.
I mean, everybody agrees that the importance of data, the criticality of data to run a successful business operations, no doubt about it. So, George, today running data systems seamlessly is very difficult, and because data breaks for a ton of different reasons, from operational issues or unforeseen code changes made by data engineers or anyone related to creating ML models or anything. Since multiple stakeholders are interacting with the data throughout the data lifecycle, how can an organization get this whole data reliability engineering right?
It's very important to look at data reliability as well as the quality of data across many dimensions. In most cases, what we have seen is that these pipelines are sitting on top of cloud infrastructure, which creates another layer of, that needs to be understood, and where the DRE principles need to be applied upon. Now, to address data reliability engineering and ensure that data consumers are getting the most qualified, trustworthy, and compliant data, Hitachi Vantara uses what we call the R3 approach, which is reveal, resolve, and regulate. In a nutshell, reveal is essentially fully examining the current state of data maturity across the company. Resolve is essentially looking at and inspecting the company's ability to timely detect and resolve data issues or any issues that are in the data pipeline. And once you have done this, then we move to regulate, where we assess the company's data risk, for example, from compliance perspective. Now, this is where Hitachi Vantara differentiates itself from competition. We offer more than tools and platforms. We also bring expertise and advice to ensure that technology supports a company's business decision making needs. Now, if you look at a bit more further, we also provide reliability architectural services in which we help companies build modern architecture and integrate it with AIML kind of systems so that data teams have a self-awareness capability. Now, and finally, we offer data reliability implementation services. So once we have assessed and we have designed the architecture for it, we also offer the reliability implementation services in which our experts and partners help our customers build the necessary tools and resources that are needed to achieve their data reliability goals and also to create a standardized reliability operating model.
That's a pretty interesting approach, R3 approach. I would see that as an holistic approach where you look at where customers are, what's their state, current state, where they want to be, and what needs to be done in order to get there. And at the same time, kind of regulate that, meaning you continuously and keep enhancing that whole reliability system, the whole data system, so that you get the most out of this whole data reliability engineering. Pretty interesting. So keeping that in mind, Anay, do you have any recommended ways to incorporate data reliability engineering as organizations are taking the cloud transformation journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And you nailed it when you said you need to have that holistic approach, right? So even data reliability needs to be baked into the cloud strategy. Now, we're just getting over the hump where a lot of organizations are now starting to look at their cloud strategy from an application lens as well as the infrastructure lens. But now we also need to add this data reliability and data lens to this as well, right? And the easiest way to do this is to actually bring in those data stakeholders earlier into the process. Now, to actually align the data lens to your cloud strategy, you need to be thinking about what are the actual applications, what are the use cases that we're actually going to be putting into the cloud. So then you can actually sort of reverse engineer how you're going to be building your sort of data pipelines and how you're going to be architecting your applications from the get-go, right? And you also said, one very important thing, it's not just a point-in-time sort of effort, right? So yes, the data reliability piece needs to be at the inception of the cloud strategy, but it's a continuous process that will continue to evolve as you migrate workloads and as you continue to operate in the cloud as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So it is important to have data quality, but at the same time, data reliability is also very important. And I mean, everybody agrees that it's and everybody acknowledges that quality data is not enough for mission critical applications. In order for someone to run those mission critical applications consistently, you not only need quality data, but you also need reliable data. So in that case, how this mission critical applications can be run in the cloud, George?
Very good question. Simply put, the answer is DRE. This is because today mission critical applications, whether they be AML, digital trends, or analytics, all depend on reliable data to work properly. If there are quality issues with that data, if that data is not reliable, timely, unbiased, etc., poor decisions will be made and poor outcomes will result. Now, traditional approaches to incident management have been reactive. If there is a breakdown in the data pipeline, for example, it must be rectified by a data engineer after an intervention, after looking at the root cause and cost analysis. All that takes time. Now, but time is exactly what most mission critical applications don't have today, which is why Hitachi Vantara's approach is more proactive. We look at incoming data moving as far left as possible, meaning that is as close to the source system as possible, And this helps our engineers in several critical ways. With Hitachi Vantara's approach, they can identify anomalies as they come in, predict approaching breakpoints within data pipelines before it occurs, ensure that breakages are automatically healed and self-cleaned or minimized as much as possible, and also ensure that the mission critical infrastructure is not impacted. Now, this proactive approach is essential, very essential, I would say. Older, more reactive approaches to incident management don't work today because they take time that mission critical applications do not have.
Yeah, so your last point about automatically healed or self-cleaned or self-healed, I think that is pretty exciting. I mean, and both Anay and George, this whole data reliability engineering represents a significant break from the existing industry best practices when you look at the managing the large and complex data systems and managing this data. So what best practices you both would like companies to implement when it comes to data reliability engineering in the cloud?
I think George alluded to it a lot where he said, think the shift left, right? You want to get ahead of actually being able to, see the data at the source and ensure reliability at the source, right? And it's really a bit of a cultural mind shift change to be able to start looking at it earlier on than actually when some of these problems arise. Now, the second piece that I would add to that is there's already organizations who are going down the path of things like site and service reliability engineering. While that's a little bit more focused on, some of the applications side itself, you can absolutely pull in some of those best practices, right? There might be a bit of a battle between the apps folks and the data folks, but without having to say that, they're completely different. You absolutely can look at it from this holistic view that's a little bit more business aligned as well.
Oh, great. So, George, would you like to add anything?
Typically, when there is a continuous flow of bad data, it becomes very laborious and costly to go back and fix it. Now, bad data can also degrade the AML models and self-service experience very quickly, a situation that is extremely challenging to fix. Now, due to this lack of communication between the development and the production support teams, problems experienced by actual users of the application do not get fed back to the development teams, making the establishment of best practices nearly impossible. Now, enterprises need to implement organizational change management in terms of how the development and support teams work cohesively together so that they look at DRE as a common problem and not as an afterthought.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, most of the enterprise today are looking at DRE as an afterthought. And the whole DRE, data reliability engineering practice, kind of brings that, addresses that problem where they're saying that, okay, it should not be afterthought, it should be proactive. I mean, enterprise should be more proactive and bring that whole data reliability engineering upfront and take into account, implement those practices to ensure that all the data consumers, as well as data stewards who are going to work on the ML models or AI models, they get reliable data all time, every time. So that's a great point. So it is true, we are kind of living in a data-driven world. And so if you look at the reality, though, there is more emphasis on collecting more data and becoming more data rich. So what would you like to tell our audience, thinking that, okay, it's not more about data, becoming more data rich right now. It is more important to become more reliable and implement this data reliability practice and become data reliable.
Again, come back to what is the business reason for that organizations are making these massive investments into modernization, right? They want to be able to make sense of the data that they have, right? And to be able to do that, you absolutely need to have data reliability built in place. Otherwise, you can't make the right sort of business decisions. You won't get the right insights. and you'll actually lose efficiency from continuing to spin on whatever your data shaping and molding efforts are, right? And finally, I would say, DRE really isn't just that technical problem. It really is something that needs to have the whole set of stakeholders involved, the data, infrastructure, apps, analytics folks, right? Everyone needs to be involved in the same conversation.
Yeah, that's true. It is, I mean, definitely I agree with you. And it is not a technical problem to solve. It is more like a cultural aspect, how you can bring that change in the culture and start, enforce, or not even enforce, basically convince everyone that everybody needs to think more on the reliability side and not just on the quality side. That's a great point, Anay. George, would you like to tell anything to our audience?
If I look at it from the lens of data engineers who are building these applications, right? So now, if an application is built and deployed, it's in the production management and support area. Now, if any data issues arise, they can be quickly contained and addressed, easily. Now, typically, when we look at DRE, we are enabling them with the tools and techniques that they can spot issues or potential issues in data sets and analyze the root causes faster than they could before and with a lesser effort. Now, these feedback from these problems that arose because of these challenges with the data can be used to help establish best practices for data engineering moving forward as well. Now, like Anay mentioned, the organizational change management that need to go into for most of the enterprises is around having the engineering and the production support teams working together so that we get a comprehensive end-to-end view of how these best practices can be implemented across the organization.
Oh, that's good. This is an incredible discussion. I mean, data reliability is definitely a new concept, but I think as more and more enterprise starts looking into it, compare the quality and data reliability, they will definitely see a clear difference on how, what business outcomes they can achieve from data reliability engineering, and then see what difference it can make. Thank you all. Thank you for joining this webinar on the data reliability engineering. It's an imperative for cloud transformation journey. Thank you.